All right, medevac success in a large-scale combat operation. I'm First Lieutenant Edwin Anderson, the Battalion Medical Service Officer, or the MEDO for 1 in the 157. Today we're going to walk through the doctrinal and tactical medevac flow in large-scale combat operations with a focus on the JRTC application for this upcoming weeks. From the point of injury to roll 2, your decisions as leaders will determine whether casualties live or die. Doctrine gives us a framework for this, and then rehearsals will get us the results. Purpose. Our operational purpose is twofold. Number 1, to establish a shared understanding among commanders, first sergeants, and medical assets of the casualty evacuation chain in a large-scale combat operation. Number 2, to emphasize the doctrinal principle that time is a critical component of survivability, and that comes from ATP 4-02.4, which is the medical platoon. There's no doctrinal fix for indecision. When we succeed when we eliminate friction from the system. You can see some of the frictions there, and then the successes when we do coordinate. I'll let you read through those. Next slide. So, point of injury to roll 1 capabilities. What we can and what we can't do. ATP 4-02.4 defines roll 1 medical care as immediate life-saving measures and triage, with evacuation to higher roles of care. Roll 1 doesn't include surgery, prolonged field care, or definitive interventions. The battalion aid station is a stabilization node, not a holding area or urgent care clinic. If we confuse that, the BAS will get overloaded, and it'll undercut the survivability of both the BAS and the soldiers that are coming through the BAS. In a summary, in a large-scale combat operation, the BAS role is to stabilize for evacuation. Stabilization is essentially making the patient survive long enough to make it roll 2 or 3, where they have surgical teams, labs, all kinds of other stuff to aid in the treatment of the soldier. All right. So every unnecessary intervention delays movement. Our medics are trained to stabilize, not cure. The metric isn't perfection, it's whether the patient makes it to the roll 2 alive. So the full flow, the doctrinal casualty flow is point of injury to the casualty collection point to evacuation asset, the FLAs, or in the mass cal situation, CASEVAC, to the battalion aid station, and then to a AXP, and then to roll 2. One of the big misconceptions is that an AXP happens between the point of injury and the BAS. That is not correct. The first BA or AXP occurs after the BAS. AXP is specifically for medical assets, so ambulance to ambulance is not for CASEVAC to ambulance. That would occur at a CCP or directly at the BAS if a CASEVAC is bringing patients to the BAS. So ATP 4-02.2 and FM 4-02 both stress that every phase requires coordination, reconnaissance, and rehearsals. No phase should be just ad hoc, I guess. Casualty evacuation and LSCO depends not just on the medics, but on synchronized maneuver, support, and command decisions in the pre-planning MDMP and in the troop leading procedures. So level of medical intervention. At the point of injury and en route to roll 1, we adhere to the TCCC guidelines. Focus on hemorrhage control, airway management, hypothermia prevention, and rapid evacuation. There's a couple different acronyms for this. One of the main ones is the MARCH. So that starts at the point of injury with CLS and then moves all the way up to the BAS. En route to the BAS, the big thing that's happening is that the medic in the back of the FLA will be administering IVs with locks so that if there is fluids needed, it's ready to go as soon as you get to the BAS. If it's a long drive, they can also administer fluids if they're needed en route. Those things can also be done with the CCP by the senior medic who's running the inside of the triage triangle. So the company CCP is the first real decision point for the companies. FM 4-02.2 directs that company casualty collection points be identified and researched during mission planning. It's not something that happens later, happens before you even step off. The first sergeant owns the CCP. It's security, traffic flow, radio coordination, and access. The medic runs the internal triage, and every cluttered lane, unmarked grid, or blocked access point adds risk. No leader should outsource that responsibility. Another thing that needs to be done, there's 2 bottom ones that I've added to the list I had previously, but to track medical supply expenditures and then send those requests forward. If there's limited radio communication, you can pass those requests with the FLA when they take patients, and then they can drop them off at the BAS. So the next time it comes around, it can drop that supplies off, and then mark the triage with the correct coloration. That's huge, just for both the medic and the first sergeant to know what the priority is and what the priority for evacuation is. All right, next slide. This is a little bit more about the CCP. So the CCP should be identified on operational overlays and planned by phase for company operations. This is done by company commanders in conjunction with the first sergeant. When conducting CCP operations, medical platoon personnel are responsible for activity inside the CCP, managing the patients, managing CLS that are helping administer interventions inside of the triage triangle, and then supported unit leadership is responsible for activity outside of the CCP. That's like the beach master, which would be the first sergeant or a platoon sergeant that the first sergeant assigns if the first sergeant is occupied somewhere else. It's recommended that all personnel train on and rehearse operations inside and outside the CCP. This is going to be critical before we go off into the box at JRTC to practice this. Otherwise, you're going to just have a clusterfuck, and people are going to get game killed by OCs if their treatment is being delayed because of stuff we can work out way before we get to the field. So CCP, the location is one terrain feature from the forward line of troops. And then the BAS is 5 to 7 kilometers or 2 terrain features for the forward line of troops. I think there's some miscommunication or misunderstanding that the CCP is like way back and it's like a AXB, but it's not. It's as close to the front line as possible, given security, cover, and access constraints for FLAs to pick up patients. Basically, it's as far forward as you can possibly get. And the same thing with the BAS. It's as far forward as you conceivably can get while still maintaining a security posture and not putting the medical assets at more risk than necessary. They're going to be at risk no matter what. But the goal is to push it as far forward as possible, because if a soldier gets to the BAS, they have a much higher chance of surviving whatever wounds they have, because it's more advanced level of care than you can do in the field. All right. Triage versus evacuation priority. This is a big confusion point, but it's very important that there's difference between the two, and it's very important to know the difference. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects in training environments and in real-world mass cows. So triage category: red, immediate; yellow, delayed; green, minimal; and black, expectant, is based on clinical conditions. Evacuation priority is based on survivability, benefit versus resource investment. So the medical platoon is operating at a constrained posture. So this is going to be huge for JRTC, even without the limit of medical assets, because they'll give you more casualties than you can handle. So let's use an example. Here, I'll just say this first. ATP 4-02.55 states that patients who are critically injured but have a low chance of survival may be assigned lower evacuation priority to conserve resources. So example, a head shot with brain matter exposed may be read by triage, but it might be the last to move. Reason being, it needs immediate treatment, but the likelihood of it surviving is lower than somebody that may be delayed because of the evacuation time. So like a soldier that, let's say, could survive 2 hours, or a soldier that could survive 30 minutes without immediate care. If the evacuation time takes an hour or whatever amount of time over 30 minutes, that soldier that can wait 2 hours is going to be given a higher evacuation priority because they'll actually survive. the evacuations. So that's important to note. So in a mass casualty, 10 or more patients, effective CCP triage involves tagging and documenting each patient, assigning evacuation by medical NCOIC, which is your senior medic at the company, and then prioritizing movement based on who benefits the most from immediate Role 1 care. If there's only a few patients, this can change, but if there's a large amount of patients, the evacuation priority in the triage categories may not line up at all, just due to evacuation constraints. All right, so I wanted to put this in here just so everyone could see it. Oh, let me go back. Oh, I skipped one. Hold on. All right, I'm going to talk through efficient loading at the CCP. So to prevent delays at CCP, appoint a dedicated load master, which is your senior medic, the first sergeant, or an NCO of your choosing. Maintain a load plan board or triage log. And then litter teams should know head first and feet first SOPs. I'm not going to go over those you should know, and then teach them to your soldiers. And then confirm the destination for each patient before loading. So don't be confused when the FLA pulls up and they've got 2 minutes to load and you don't know where the patients are going in the FLA. So ATP 4-02.55, which is medical evacuation, ATP, advises that evacuation platforms be pre-briefed on patient types and priority. Uncoordinated loading leads to FLA reroutes, patient drops, or dead space in the ambulance. Like ambulance is going back with only 2 patients. We have 20 patients because it wasn't pre-coordinated. There's still patients being moved or whatever is a waste of resource. And then not knowing where they're going and how they're going, as well as patient handoff. If this can be done while the FLA is still en route, that's great. If it can't, it's just an efficient single person to talk to the team leader for that evacuation asset to download all that information. It's a one person to one person. It shouldn't be multiple people talking to clear up that chaos that happens when they're picking up patients. All right, I just wanted to go over this quick so you can see. So if you look on the right-hand side, it's forward line of troops is to the right, and then the Role 2 is to the left. This is the basic setup we're going to be operating with at JRTC. So if you do end up bringing patients in with a CASEVAC vehicle, there's going to be a single direction of travel. I will establish some sort of marking to show where the patient drop-off triage area is, which is on the right in this picture. In the dotted lines, you can see the triage area. So there'll be a large triage area, and then there'll be a separate area for expectant soldiers that are not going to make it, and it'll be separated, and that is chiefly where the chaplain will be ministering to soldiers. But this is the basic flow. So we have a 2-liter setup. We have a tarp spanning between an LMTV and 2 FLAs that one of them will be running for heat casualties, and then the alternate will, on the right side, will be able to be started and hold more heat casualties. A litter can hold 4 litter, or a FLA can hold 4 litter-bound patients, or up to 6. You could probably theoretically hold 8 if they're just heat catted and they just need to sit in the AC to cool off. So keep that in mind. We do have the capability for cooling to help soldiers out. Anything else on here? So you see the FLAs are staged on the left side. Most of those will be gone, rotating on mission to the companies. Most of the time we're in the field. All right, this is so patient tracking occurs up on the upper right-hand corner of that brown box. That brown box is representing the tarp cover that we'll have with camo nets. If first sergeants, you come in here, don't pester the PA, don't pester the medics, come straight to the RTO or myself, who will be sitting at that desk, so we can allow them to work on your soldiers and not get distracted by operational stuff or just patient tracking. I can help you get sorted out. If the PA needs to be involved, I can grab her. But just to keep her on the patients, that will be important. All right, next slide. So reducing the diet of wounds. So when we went to the LTP in December down at Fort Johnson, one of the biggest categories, actually the biggest categories for deaths or casualties on the battlefield was diet of wounds, which is waiting on evacuations. So diet of wounds is not just a medical number; it's a leadership report card. ATP 4-02.2 notes that early evacuation is the single most impactful factor in battlefield survival. So to reduce diet of wounds, plan CCP into maneuver graphics, move patient early, not after the fight. So if you have a designated aid and litter team that can bring them back to the CCP and start getting them triaged, do that. Ensure FLAs are running loops. That's my job, and not parked waiting for permission. So if you got a FLA loaded and they're ready to go, just get them out of your CCP, because the faster they leave, the faster they're coming back for more patients. So leadership that waits for a hire to fix the problem will watch the casualty count rise. So in conclusion, 3 final doctrinal truths. Medical readiness equals combat power. If your medics are out of position or out of gas, you lose capability. Evacuation is a leadership task. So FM 4-02.2 says commanders are responsible for timely evacuation. Own it. If they get to roll 1, they should live. Our BAS is not perfect, but if it's fed rapidly and correctly, it works. The system only works if every part of the team executes. From the medical platoon that cares, thank you, and remember, we do this for the infantry. And this picture is for First Armed Brenneman. We love you.